Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Look at me, revealing a bit too much at the start there. Kia ora whānau. Welcome back to another edition of Big Hear Me. You're very zoomed in, Chewy. We're very close to your face.
I just noticed that. I don't know why.
Because you're dead sexy. You're dead sexy. Look at my big face up in your screen there.
That's not a bad impression.
There you go.
Oh, nobody deserves this, Pat. What have you done?
Hey man, how are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad at all.
We've had an interesting old weekend. We were originally going to be visiting Mr. Bachelor on Saturday night. That all kind of got canned. I even didn't hear what happened at the end. Do you know what happened with old JB on Saturday night?
Had about 15 people on his live stream.
Oh.
Some people went down to the original location just to see if there was any stragglers or if it was a big fake out and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And what I heard was when they greeted some people turning up, obviously looking for something, with a friendly kia ora, the answer they got back is, "We speak English in fucking Dunedin."
Are you serious?
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, the thing is that Julian has had such consistent pushback wherever he's gone, that he's had to retreat to these private invite only live streams in towns where he thinks he's going to have he's still traveling around, he's still burning money doing it.
Yeah.
But he's changing his mind so late that there's people coming to see him that don't know about it. So I would chalk that up as a win.
Yeah. G'day to everybody. Welcome to the show. Kia ora, kia ora. Good to see you all in there. Just saying hello. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Hello, and more in there as well. So I ended up being in town, obviously. Didn't know that it had been cancelled. Hung out at the cafe for a while and then went home and went out on a date because I had a free evening because didn't have anything planned because I was going to be doing something. Yeah, so that was kind of cool. Well, tonight's show, there is one story which is not featured in the overall story. We are, yes, I know, going to be talking about Karen Plunket again tonight. But there's some interesting, there's just more and more interesting information coming about that person, human being, human man, baby, every single day. And so I know that some people think that we have a bit of a, we fetishize.
We're obsessed. We're obsessed. I saw consistent comments over the weekend that we're obsessed, like it's that Mean Girls burn. It's like, oh, you're just obsessed with me.
But yeah, there's been a split in the darkness. The dark, it's. I often talk, Chewy, and maybe I need to make culprit a little bit. I talk about how the right seems to have it together politically, but the left is very fractured. It seems that here in New Zealand, the right is actually quite fractured, and I point to things like, all those little conspiracy political parties that were going to speak with one voice, and all of a sudden they're all splitting up, and this person's leaving that group because they had the wrong muffins on at lunchtime, and this person's leaving that group because they didn't use the human correct. My correct pronouns, which are manly and cool, or whatever they're going to be doing, I don't know. And so actually, the right, the far right looks pretty fractured. The right seems to talk with one voice pretty well, but the far right seems to be quite fractured. And old Karen certainly sits his broadcast into that world. I know that some will challenge that because there's some things they talk about that aren't, but others on the far right have kind of come apart at the seams with something Plunket did last week, and now they're threatening to sue him. And I thought it couldn't happen to a nicer group. So yes, we are going to talk about that tonight. Dear. And there's also something else that's come up just in this evening that I saw, which is not, there is a group that are threatening to sue him, and there is a person who I think should sue him, who's not, for defamation.
Yes.
But we'll have a look at that as well. But look, before we do any of that, this wasn't in the write-up because this has only really just come out in the news tonight. I just want to play super quick for you what's just happened with the COVID restrictions, because I mean at some stage it was going to come off, but I do feel a little bit chewy, like you've got this virus which is still around. Let's just play it. COVID restrictions are coming off completely, all of them, 100%.
At midnight, the last of our COVID restrictions will be scrapped, finally ending the 7-day self-isolation period for anyone who tests positive.
And that's the one. That's the big one.
And masks are no longer required when visiting hospitals, GPs and pharmacies. This as the number of new COVID cases over the past week rose to more than 5,000. It's up 15% week on week, leading to questions over why the government's decided to end restrictions in winter. Deputy Political Editor Mikey Sherman reports.
And now that people don't have to self-isolate, what do you think is going to happen? Fuck knuckles.
March 2020 marking a moment in history. We closed our borders to the world as COVID-19 gripped the globe. There were gathering limits, self-isolation and nationwide lockdowns.
It was an incredibly fearful time for us and for the world, and no one at that time could foresee how things were going to turn out.
From tomorrow, the final remnants will be no more as mask requirements at pharmacies, GPs and hospitals are scrapped.
We have a sign at the door that reminds people that they should be wearing a mask.
But we don't enforce it.
But I'd say 90% of people don't have a mask on them.
Testing positive for the virus will no longer require any isolation.
I think the pandemic's been pretty hellish for many people, and we obviously want to put it behind us. But at the same time, there are some positive lessons we can learn from it, and I think we should take those forward.
Professor Michael Baker, who became synonymous with COVID-19, rejects the move.
COVID-19, as we know, has not gone away. It's still our #1 infectious disease killer in New Zealand, killing at least 10 people a week.
The disabled community asking the public to remain sensible.
And make sure that they're not risking other people inadvertently by going out and interacting with others if they feel unwell.
The government says COVID numbers are low and waste.
I think all the times we've talked to Anna Brooks, Chewy, her biggest point was the people who are going to suffer most from any kind of lifting or anything is always going to be the most vulnerable. Yep. So this is just going to fuck over the most vulnerable. Most of us, like I've had it once, I think, Chewy, you've had it once. Most of us kind of flew through it on some level. Yeah, we might have been a bit sick, with, and I'm not saying it is a flu, but, flu-like symptoms. But the people who have always been hit hardest by this are the most vulnerable. And now that everything's off, I mean, the other thing to remember is I talked about 5,500 cases this week. That will be a quarter of the actual cases. I haven't done it today. I probably should have, but by tomorrow night's show, I'll come back and tell you tomorrow night. Always the wastewater. That's the only way to do it accurately now is the wastewater, because the wastewater, you can't not accidentally pee out virus. But you can not phone through and report your virus. So, yeah, we'll just get to the end of this article then. This is not a story we're really going to focus on a lot tonight, but it is a big story, so we thought we'd just highlight it at the start.
Water testing shows much the same. With New Zealand still in the middle of winter, there are some concerns that perhaps removing restrictions, including around mask use, is a little premature, raising the question whether the upcoming election has anything to do with it. How much of this is about cutting any political ties to COVID-19 ahead of the election?
We always said that we would reach the point where we were able to finally draw a line under the pandemic and remove the remaining restrictions.
I'd just say that I'm surprised that they're choosing to do it, as I say, in the middle of winter when there's still so much sickness out there.
Regardless, say 3.5-year chapter in our history is coming to an end.
Well, that's one thing we don't know, HO. Is it coming to an end, or is this going to see a bit of a reanimation of this last 3.5 years? I'm not suggesting to the same levels, but I don't know. I mean, obviously at some stage it had to stop and it hasn't gone away and we can't keep everything in forever. But I mean, if nothing else, the 7-day isolation, I mean, that always seems to be a pretty significant way to protect others around us. But then if people aren't actually doing it anyway, where does that sort of leave us? I don't know. But I'm not ambivalent to the decision. I would have hoped that the isolation period would still have been in there, because now that it's not a situation, then businesses, bosses won't be quite as easy to say, I can't come in for another 7 days, I've got COVID. Once you start feeling better, you'll come in whether you've tested or not. And I don't know, I'm iffy about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's bad for vulnerable people. I think it's bad for workers. Because I don't feel like any of the lessons that we could have learned are going to be learned. Like, for a briefest moment in time, because there was that support to stay home if you were sick, people actually stayed home because they were sick. I mean, I still remember, people that would come to work and go, oh, I'm a bit sick, but I'm going to soldier through. And I remember a manager of mine making like half the team sick with flu because he wouldn't take a few days off. And we've had all of this education, and we've had all of this, you're symptomatic. If you still feel sick, you are still contagious. But that's not going to fly. We're going to go back to normal. We're going to be back to people minimizing their sick days and going to work sick. And for me, like this is the real kicker. This is the official policy. No legal requirements to self-isolate. No support for employers or self-employed people from the government. And look, the taps couldn't stay open forever, sure, but as has been pointed out, in the middle of winter, just before everybody goes on the campaign trail, seems to be convenient.
It just seems to be one of those things that the Labour government is seeming to take mostly all the cowardly steps it can at the moment, whether it's ruling out capital gains tax and wealth tax, whether it's staying strong. I mean, like, it's a bit like, for such a long time, probably under Jacinda Ardern more, they made all the hard decisions, they got all the kickback for it, but they kept New Zealand as healthier. I mean, you've got 2 months to wait, Labour. 2 more months and then open it up, say. But no, I think that most of this is probably politically motivated, if you ask me. So 6:30. I want to see maybe whilst I'm playing the first story, I'll look up what the wastewater readings are, and that's the way that we can actually have a look at it. All right. Anyway, as I said, didn't have a lot of prep for that one tonight, but it did come out, so I thought we'd just share it with you as well. But one of the stories we do want to move on to is GST. Now, this is actually the story from last night. I think I will play this one from last night because it talks about it, and then the one from tonight, the big story is, they got their numbers wrong, sort of, not really. They made a printing error, but sort of got their numbers wrong. So we'll play the headlines from when the story came out. I won't play this whole story, and then we'll move on to tonight's story and pull out some ironies about National trying to have a crack with us. So here is the announcement from yesterday.
Good evening. GST on fruit and veggies will be a goner if Labour is re-elected. Chris Hipkins has officially unveiled his not-so-secret weapon, which he says will cut $5 off the average weekly shop. The cost of living carrot comes with changes to working for families and the in-work tax credit, which Labour says will see 175,000 families $47 a week better off by 2026. Political editor Jenna Lynch has more.
The hometown hero Chris Hipkins happy to be here in the Hut.
It is fantastic to be with you here in the mighty Hutt Valley today with just 62 days to go.
Not long to butter up the public in this winter of discontent.
I can't control the weather, but I can do something about food prices.
Hutt Valley better work on their audio quality just between you and me.
Selecting another staple to add to his bread and butter agenda.
Today I'm announcing that if re-elected, Labour will remove GST from fresh and frozen fruit and veggies from the 1st of April next year.
Reaching down the back of the old deep freeze, reheating Labour's 2011 pledge of tax-free fruit and veg.
Are you out of fresh ideas?
No.
Cue the shopping list of questions.
And why not canned fruit and veg?
The distinction that we've made is the difference between unprocessed and processed.
It's actually, we've talked about this, about where will the lines be. It's actually really clear. And like, I think some of the media, certainly the opposition, are trying to find out like holes in the situation, but it's actually really clear being about processed food, and he explains it really easily. Have a listen.
Unprocessed and processed.
What about coleslaw?
That has value added to it, so it has extra ingredients added into it, so it won't be covered.
So a bag of coleslaw in the salad aisle?
If it has mayonnaise added into it, then it
Easy.
won't be covered.
Why not meat?
This is what's affordable.
The policy previously described as a boondoggle by his finance minister, he's come round.
I had two main concerns. The first of those was, would this get passed on? And you would have seen in the announcement today that we're talking about the Grocery Commissioner having that role.
He's not the only one that hated it.
The big winners and the big recipients of this policy are going to be the supermarket owners, not New Zealand families.
So what Luxon's saying to all you supermarket owners is you're dishonest. That's what Luxon's saying. The party of business and the party that wants to support small business is saying, supermarket owners, we don't trust you. You are dishonest. You're going to keep the profits. That's what Luxon's actively saying.
And we think the better approach is to cut out the middleman, to give people genuine tax relief straight into their...
So you're going to vote for the Greens. Right. Let's get on to tonight's story. You've got the general gist. I actually think it was I was always wondering how they're going to do it, but value added gets eliminated. So fresh vegetables in a bag with a mayonnaise, value added, it's eliminated. And if it's processed on some level, it gets eliminated. So a tin of fresh fruit or even like a squeezed orange juice. And I think that comes up in this story. Something's been done to it. It's been processed. Yeah, I'm pretty unimpressed that the headline on some of these stories is like, is going to end up in court cases or going to end up in legal action. This is David Seymour shit stirring. Doing it might end up in legal action. It's like there's no evidence of that, especially when I think it's so clear.
This is a little tangent, but this is, well, not really. This is David Seymour's thing. Do you remember when they phased out single-use plastic shopping bags? Do you remember what he said about that?
I don't remember what he said.
He said people were going to die. People were going to get sick and die because we were getting rid of single-use shopping bags.
Really?
Because of hygiene. Yeah, absolutely. Like complete, like way out the gate.
Yeah.
So just keep that in your mind whenever David Seymour decides to divine the future, that the dude is wrong all of the time.
The thing about it is, and no one's saying it's the perfect system. National has to, but it will save people money. And I didn't show it from the last night's story, but they went out onto the streets. It looked like of South Auckland, and pretty much all of the people they were talking to were like, fucking choice. This is awesome. Oh. So it was received well by the public. Now, I haven't been deriding of it too much, but I have said, you spend $50-$60 on fresh fruit and veggie a week, it's going to save you $6.50. It's not the difference between filling your tank of gas or not. But, I guess for some people, it might be the other way around. It might be the difference between buying fresh fruit and veg and not buying frozen. Maybe. And there's always better nutrients in the fresh than there is in the frozen, mostly.
I mean, I just think if you're going to deliver relief to people, that there's more efficient ways of doing it. Yeah, sure, Grocery Commissioner might protect this carve out. It might not be as admin intensive to maintain it, but like it just seems real lackluster to me. I think it is a political move, and look, it is well received. They did the research; people really, really liked it. That's why they picked it. It's a decision by a focus group. I just wish they did something braver, but at the same time, if it plays, then
good for them. I think that how I kind of think as I speak. I think what I just said. Why aren't the mainstream media asking Luxon that? So, Mr. Luxon, what you're saying is that the business owners, the supermarkets, can't be trusted. They're going to act nefariously. That's what you're saying, Mr. Luxon. You're saying the business owners, the people who own the supermarkets and run the supermarkets, they're going to keep the profits for themselves unethically rather than pass it on. You think that the business owners are unethical. That's what you're saying, Mr. Luxon. Because how else could you interpret it?
He quite often does this though. Like, I saw comments on Nicola Willis's Twitter page today, sort of going, it's not even going to pass on that much to thing, and the supermarket duopoly is just going to swallow that up. And I sort of jumped on that, and I was like, Nicola, so you identify that the supermarket duopoly is a problem. So what is National going to do about it? And
reminds me,
I have to say at this point, I have been left on red.
I'm just writing down News Hub Nation. Luxon. Pardon me. Speaking of COVID, there was a expert on News Hub Nation over the weekend, which I'm not showing you tonight because we've got plenty of other stuff, who was saying when you listen to Mr. Luxon speak, what he does is doesn't answer the question, and he says quite a lot. What I meant by that was, and then he doesn't tell you what he meant. He says, what I mean is, and then he doesn't tell you what he means. Excuse me while I cough. It's my asthma. My asthma's playing up. All right. Anyway, let's have a look at the story from tonight, because this is where apparently National thinks they've got a massive win here, because, you know, these stupid Labor guys having a printing error.
Criticism is growing around Labor's proposal to scrap GST on fruit and vegetables, with some claiming it could lead to legal action. Chris Hipkins is also...
Okay. Some claiming it could lead to legal action. Some is David Seymour.
Admitted the public's been given a bum stare about the true cost of the policy. Here's senior political reporter Benedict Collins.
Oranges could soon be GST free if Labor wins the election.
I think it's a great idea. That will reduce our overall living expenses significantly.
But once you put them through here and turn them into fresh OJ, well, that juice won't be GST free.
Yeah, I would love to see that happen into my product as well, because customer doesn't have to spend as much as they should.
Freshly squeezed orange juice isn't included. Why is that?
Because it's a processed food.
And the debate about what's processed and what isn't could get messy.
Of course, I acknowledge there are always going to be questions about something that sits at the margin.
Even over the definition of the word process, there will be court cases.
Meanwhile, National's feasting on a Labor...
Did you get that? Some people say that was the some people.
Just
that was.
I'm glad he's not a person, not prominent, potential deputy leader. David
Mistake.
Good afternoon. Look, for obvious reasons, I'm a little reluctant to talk about holes in the same sentence as Grant Robertson.
Funny how she makes a joke about she's a little unkeen to talk about holes. I don't think it's because of that. I think it's because of the $2.8 billion hole they had. That's the reason I think that they're little, reticent about talking about holes. That's my opinion.
But that is what we have here.
Labor handed out this fact sheet yesterday. It didn't take into account their policy would actually come into effect next April.
That contained an amateur error that amounted to $250 million.
Do you think it's a bit ironic that their fact sheet was wrong?
With Labor, I'm not surprised. They struggle with the facts, they struggle with delivery, they struggle with detail.
I'd like to see the...
Okay, they struggle with facts, delivery and detail from the party that's given us basically no detail about most of their policies, which the Prime Minister is about to say. And as I'm going to show you shortly, have a nearly $3 billion gap hole in one of their policies that they released the other day. The other thing is the difference between, let's just even say it wasn't $3 billion. Let's say that they had a $250 million gap. So it was like for like. Labor's policy, it's a printing error. So they haven't committed to that money. It's not like this is what it's going to cost. It's they got their dates wrong, right? So there's no money actually difference there. Nationals, the whole, and their roading policy is actually upwards of $3 billion that they haven't accounted for. So Labor has said it's going to cost this much. Oh no, if it starts from this month, it'll cost this much. So therefore, there's no loss of money. It's just an error with their dates. Not okay, but that's all. Whereas Nationals is actually a hole in their budget where the money needs to come from.
Yeah, and for malicious reasons too, because they're using figures that are years out of date, and they're using the most conservative interpretation of costs and that sort of thing. They are deliberately doing this, as opposed to, as you said, a printing error that was corrected the next day.
Yeah. So. Again, not to beat up too much on the mainstream media, beat them up because we can. Who asked her that? Who said, hang on, you know how you're pointing out their printing error that makes it look like there's $250 million? How do you guys sit on your $3 billion? Like, where's the... That's when they said, the irony is, not that you made a joke about his hole. The irony is you've got a hole in yours, which is, what is that? 4 times 3, 12 times the size, 11 times the size. So your hole is 11 times bigger than Grant Robertson's hole.
The facts and the detail of the National Party's tax plans, which they still continue to refuse to release. Yes, there was a typo on one of the fact sheets that was sent out.
The point of the GST-free policy is to ease the cost of living and encourage healthy diets. Some say Labor would have been better off boosting the Food in Schools program.
This is the right intention and in the right direction, but for $500 million a year, I think we could get much better health equity outcomes.
It would be wonderful if it made people eat more fresh fruit and veggies. The truth is, you'll save more with your customer loyalty card than this Labor policy.
Well, you won't actually, because the customer loyalty card will still be there and still give you those discounts, and there'll be no GST. And you know how notice how he says it? It would be great if it caused people to eat more healthy. So what he's saying is it's not going to. How the fuck do you know? Like, hello? So how do you know? So let's trial this for a year. It's like Chewy, when the NBA brought in the 3-point line, they trialled it for one season to see how it would go, and it stayed. Let's trial this for a year, see if it looks like there's more uptake of fresh fruit and veggie, and then make that comment, Mr. Seymour, rather than standing out here making the comment immediately that it's not going to work. How the fuck do you know?
Labour's new policy facing a tough squeeze. Benedict Collins, One News.
Oh, we love puns, don't we, Chewy? So there you go. So the idea is out. People already know here that we're pretty, I guess I would say I'm pretty ambivalent to the whole thing. You know, you might save $6 to $10 a week with fresh fruit. It's not going to be a massive difference. This is what National Party's finance spokesman Nicola Willis claims, that there is a $250 million error. So notice the word error. So in other words, they made a mistake in their presentation. It's not a $250 million hole or budgetary blowout or gap in the policy. It's an error in the Labour tax policy to scrap goods and services tax from fresh and frozen fruit and vegetables. Labour sees their policy to remove GST from fruit and vegetables will take effect from 1st of April 2023, but this is not reflected in their costing of this policy. So it'll be starting from then, not starting from right now. Now, just to show people what I've been talking about, the irony, of course, let's say it is an error. Let's say it's a gap in their policy. Let's say it's going to cost an extra $250 million that they haven't budgeted for. Hi, Labour is actually believing about National now that it's found at least a $2.8 billion hole in National's massive transport package, and it's calling on the party to explain. It's bigger, isn't it?
It's a much bigger number.
That was your cue to talk while I was coughing. I don't know why I'm coughing.
Oh, okay. I was just saying, what are you doing? And if I had a soundboard, I would have put in some sort of animal noise. It's probably best that I don't have that power.
So anyway, it's a bit of a meh policy, I think. As you say, Chewy, always say, can't they be bolder? But I guess the opposition is always going to complain about something that's going to save people money and be received well. Their criticism criticism is fair because it was an error, but it's not fair in the idea that their error was 10 times the size and theirs is actually budgetary, whereas Labour's is just a printing error. I don't know. It's a C+ to me, this policy.
I mean, it's boring.
Yeah.
I think there's better things I could have done with the money. I have concerns about whether those cost savings will actually get passed on to people, that will all come out of the wash. I don't think it's necessarily a bad policy. It is objectively going to be better for anybody that buys fresh fruit and vegetables, which is most people, hopefully. It's just, yeah. I don't know. It doesn't blow my hair back.
No, 100%. But I mean, yeah. It's some money being saved. It's not a lot of money being saved. I do wonder as well, like we're looking at the guy who's doing fresh fruit juices, right? So his is processed, so there's GST on that. But when he buys it from the supermarket, there'll be no GST on that. So in his ledger book, for those of you guys who do accounts, like I use Xero, you can purchase something and you have a little drop-down box and it says no GST included in this. And then when you sell it, it'll be GST included. But it doesn't make any difference to a business because then they won't have to pay the GST back on the one with no GST, and they will have to pay the GST back on the one with GST. But it's a little bit more accounting. I mean, that's probably part of the costs they're talking about implementing this sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. It seems all meh to me. It seems that National needs to find a hole in it. Pardon the pun, but needs to find an error problem with it, and they sort of have found an embarrassment that they got the printing wrong.
That's actually. I saw a National billboard on the way up as I came home, and I think it's their new slogan: "Any hole's a goal." so
yeah, I'm a bit blah about the whole thing, to be perfectly honest. It is what it is.
I mean, you compare, like this is. It's one of those things. It was going to be Labour's big announcement, right? And we all kind of knew it was coming anyway because it had been leaked and National were talking about it, and so it had like basically the soft launch where everyone went, oh yeah, that sounds pretty good. The public seemed to really like it. But I turn that around and I contrast that again with the Greens.
Yeah.
With what they're saying. And it's exciting and it's transformative and it will benefit more people in a greater way. And I'm just saying it now. I'm not even being shy about it. It's just like if you make less than $170,000 a year,
Vote
if you
Green.
want a tax cut, if you want people that are worse off from you to get something out of it as well, if you want kids to be better off, if you want health outcomes to be better, if you want your teeth looked after, all of these sort of things, it's just better. And they just announced the thing that I was talking about last week. Interest-free loans and subsidies for green energy production at home.
Yeah.
So your solar panels, your double glazing, all of these sort of things, just basically really supercharging healthy homes. Again, long-term benefits.
Yeah. No, very good. Freesol also Freesol echoes something that we said when this story got leaked. We said on that night, maybe because they've put the Grocery Commissioner in now, they'll do that then to keep an eye on it, which is what Freesol is saying. Paul points out what exactly it would be. $8 pumpkin would be $6.80. I mean, that feels significant, doesn't it? When you look at it like that, Yeah.
I mean, like I said, it's not bad. I don't think they've shit the bed. It's just not exciting.
There's a good joke. Labor showing support for Greens.
Oh, boo. That's
like that
your
one?
warning, Guru.
Guru also thinks it's a huge win for vegetarians, which is true. If you're a vegetarian, mate, your budget for your shopping's just gone exponentially. It's great. Maybe we should all be vegetarians then. All right, let's move on. Because here's one that'll make some people giggle. If you are a regular viewer of whatever the fuck this is called, this show, is it a show? I don't know what we call it. This thing.
The extravaganza.
The extravaganza. You know that last week we showed you some video of Karen Plunket talking about... Have you noticed that Karen Plunket's gone very quiet in our Twitter feed recently? You notice that?
Oh, has he muted us?
I don't know. But I wonder it's because there's a few things that... I wonder if it's because there's a few things that we've been saying that he might not want other people to find. But
he
he's been very
certainly
quiet.
seems to have sicked some people on us, I think. No. Well, more specifically on you, but that's hilarious.
Mm. Oh, JK says it's a gathering. It's our gathering.
Oh.
That's what this is. So anyway, he said some things last week when he interviewed, we showed the video of him interviewing that person who was, the story we did, how he was amplifying Counterspin talking points. And then he said some things in that story about Counterspin and about the people that were there. Well, Counterspin has responded to him. Let's have a listen. Remember, and these guys are all from, in my opinion, are all kind of from the same side of the political sphere, same audience, and they're all fighting out to be the ones to keep that audience. Oh, I can't hear you. Something happened to the audio. There it is. We'll go back. Here we go.
And another new word that I hadn't heard before that Sean mentioned this week was cookers. That's what he called us. So I looked it up.
So they've never heard the term cookers.
I don't believe them.
Well, that's what she's saying. Never heard the term cookers.
And
first of all, I went through all the dictionaries.
Yes.
Okay.
All the dictionaries.
All the dictionaries. Yep. Someone who cooks.
The one like the hands, the hand sign dictionary, the urban dictionary, the Spanish dictionary, all of them. Went through all of the dictionaries.
Utensil, and if you get down to the urban dictionary, it talks about a utensil for basically dissolving drugs. Obviously, for meth heads, they call them cookers as well.
Meth heads.
But apparently, he wasn't applying it in that sense either. And you found what?
Oh yeah, I found an article dated February earlier this year, and it said majorly cooked sporting legends Pat Cash and Kelly Slater, who went on to an episode with Graham Hood. Over there in Australia.
Oh, you know,
and,
that's
yeah,
it.
So they're cookers. It's another word for conspiracy theorists.
Graham
apparently.
Hood, of course, the Australian Qantas pilot who was calling out the vaccine injured. We don't call it a vaccine because it's not quite clearly. But yet the platform seems to push that. They seem to believe that the jab, all you people out there walking around injured and those who have lost their loved ones, apparently it's all in your head.
Correct. It is all in your head. It's believing a narrative. It's putting the solution to a question, putting it in, to the answer, putting the answer into the question that you want is what it is. So obviously people passing away is not all in their head, but attributing it to the vaccine other than a very, very, very small number, talking single figures, I think, technically, that's been released, of very tragic stories. The other ones that these people talk about, yes, it is all in your head completely. I don't know if I ever told you the story about the woman that I met at the protest. Actually, it was at the protest for the that we talk about going down at the Octagon when we went down there when Destiny Church was there. A woman came up to, we were getting into a car and a woman looked at me. She goes, "Oh, what's this all about?" And I went, "Oh, they're protesting Destiny Church across the way and having a bit of a party." She went, "Oh." I can't remember the exact conversation, but she said something about mandates and vaccines. And then she said, "My daughter died of the vaccine." And I looked at her and I went, "What?" And she went, "My daughter died of the vaccine." And I just went, "I don't believe you." I just said, I do not believe you. And she looked at me and she said, "Well," and basically that was it. And then she left. And I just felt like if she was right and I was wrong, that was the least defensive person in the world, having someone just tell them that their child hadn't died of the vaccine. You know what I mean? Like if your child had died in a car crash the week before, you'd be like, "How can you say that?" And it was just like accepted and walked away. So I just said to her face, I don't believe you. I'm sorry. I do not believe you. Anyway, should we keep going on with these two?
I just want to point out where they could have gone before they carry on. They could have just gone to Cookipedia. Describes what cookers consist of people who believe in a wide range of conspiracy theories, whether mainstream or fringe. Multiple definitions of the cooker can be found on Urban Dictionary. So yeah,
to be honest,
it's a great article.
Well, there's another thing. There's also context. To be really blunt, I'd never heard the term cooker before, but in the context where it was used, it's very obvious what it meant. I didn't need to go to the Cookipedia or find out exactly. I knew the context. I was able to read the context into what it meant. So there you go.
I love it when someone goes, "I don't even know what it is. I'm not aware of it." Yeah, you're making yourself seem like even dumber.
The other thing is, I'm pretty sure that these guys might be fans of ours as well, Chewy, because I don't know what her name is. Do you know what her name is?
Anyway. Hannah Spearer or something.
She says something about right family funding, which I think I'm the only person to say publicly. So maybe we've got some more fans, Chewy.
This thing's great. So
good to
see. It just goes to show that, as usual, Counterspin Media 100% correct. And if you're going to call us a fantasist or whatever, then I'm 100% correct one.
Well, we look forward to the day where.
In fact, let's invite Sean Plunket
on the show.
Please. Unlike you, Sean, we'll actually let you speak and give full answers before.
Let them fight.
We won't even try to override you. We'll get you to bring your facts and evidence. We'll have ours. And let's debate. Let's see who's right. Let's see who the people decide at the end of the day is right and who's wrong.
That'd be a cool debate.
Like $2 million, someone invested in that crap.
Well,
and here we are, nickel and dime outfit, getting everything 100% correct. Those who fund the platform, how about funding us? Because I tell you what, we'll pour it on even bigger and better than we do now.
Yeah, there's rumours going around that they're not actually funding them anymore, but I cannot confirm that.
Surprised with the low ratings.
So
I think the biggest ratings they get when they have people like us on.
Well, the truth is, there's probably an element of truth to that. And the biggest ratings they get when they have people like them on, because that's who their audience is people like them. So now on to the semi-fun bit, right? I'm sorry if you didn't want to hear any of that stuff, but you know, you've been exposed. So Sean Plunket came out and said, you're a racist nutbar fantasist. If you are a journalist, I'm an attack helicopter, because Counterspin said, Sean, just in case you forgot how you and other platform hosts disparage the one journalistic team that is based on facts and evidence and have never been proven wrong.
Where have they pulled this out of?
Here's a reminder of your great endorsement, which is true, when Calvin Alp went on there. So Plunket has been amplifying their voice. Plunket on some level is responsible for other people knowing about them. And now he's pushing back because business mummy and daddy said no more conspiracy theorists until he does it accidentally. So this is now part of the press release. Sean Plunket responds to the Counterspin challenge, proving once again Sean may have taken leave of his senses. He made a slanderous remark to which we shall allow him an opportunity to withdraw and apologise. If he cannot provide evidence of his assertion that Counterspin or its hosts are racist, we shall take a lawsuit against him. Your move, Sean Plunket, and the platform. The fastest car in the world. There you go. What do you think?
That's awesome. Isn't it just like two dreadful people or two dreadful organizations fighting with each other? And I just feel like win or lose, we win.
Yeah. Oh God, would you imagine? I would love it. I would love it if Sean went on there. That would be amazing.
Oh, amazing. I would go to their location if I was Sean. I would go to their studio and like kick over their green screen or something like that. I don't know.
There's a part 2 to this. It's not to do with them. It's to do with Sean Plunket. So there's a group that are threatening to sue. They won't, but threatening to sue. But here's a person who I think might have a case to sue. So Shaneel Lal put this message out today. We played this last week. Sean Plunket talking about how Shaneel had paid for 1,000 copies of the book himself, theirself. And apparently Sean then admitted he wasn't telling the truth. So he tweeted it out.
Shocking.
And then he admitted he wasn't telling the truth. Shaneel says, Sean Plunket admits he intentionally lied about me buying 1,000 copies of my book to become a bestseller and sharing rumors that 1,000 copies of my book were stolen. He said he did it for, quote, fun and because he has a, quote, developed sense of humor. So this is the story.
That is so weak.
This is a story. Online campaigner against trans rights author Shaneel Lal takes baffling and slightly menacing turn. A segment of Twitter has now decided, without any evidence, that Lal has bought 1,000 copies of their own book, which were then stolen back during the break-in. Even broadcaster, I should put parentheses around that, Sean Plunket jumped on the bandwagon, telling his 23,000 followers, the real story is Shaneel buying 1,000 copies of his own book to boost sale, under a tweet claiming Lal was trying to get insurance money for the books. And there's the tweet chain there. So that someone, it's suggesting that people broke into Shaneel's house. And do you know the story better? Can you want to expand on that?
No, I just want to sit there and say, he's saying it's a joke, basically just joking. The real story is, from someone of Sean's history and career and basically funneling his listeners to that, they will take him at his word.
Yeah.
There are people like this, like, we keep on comparing him to Alex Jones. These people will take him at his word. He can point his audience at someone. He can weaponize them. And if he doesn't realize this, then he's a dumbass. And if he does realize, then he's doing it on purpose.
The thing about defamation and stuff as well is defamation is quite a high yardstick. There's a couple of things have to be involved. You have to knowingly be spreading mis or disinformation. Well, let's go on to the second part of the story. This is Plunket. I'll be honest, I didn't think it was really true, but it was a good bit of fun, Plunket told Stuff. I don't know if Shaneel has a highly developed sense of humor as I do. Plunket put up a tweet days later saying that it appeared Shaneel had never said 1,000 books were stolen. But while it was fun for Plunket, Lal has felt increasingly unsafe as the campaign ramped up and has since had a new fence put up at their home and is looking to install security cameras. Now, the second thing about defamation is it depends, pardon me, how many people you reach. Like, if we defame someone and our 8 watchers saw it, wouldn't be a very big deal. If you've got 23,000 followers and, I don't know, several thousand more who have seen it or watched it or heard it because of your platform, it can be more serious. Like, literally, defamation has a high bar. You have to willingly know that you are spreading a lie, which Plunket has denied. So Counterspin are threatening to sue. I just hope Shaneel does, because I think he's got a case, even though he's retracted it. Once, what is it? Lies will go around the world 3 times before truth gets its pants on. So no matter what is said now publicly, people will think because of that tweet that he has stolen 1,000 of his own books through insurance fraud and paid for them himself, or whatever the complete thing is.
I mean, they're already copying some absolutely vile online blowback. And Sean's just literally poured gasoline on that recently. So yeah, I agree. I hope someone just approaches him and goes, "Do you want to have a crack at him pro bono or whatever?" Absolutely deserves to happen. Like this is now the second time that Sean's done something like this.
Yeah.
So yeah, someone needs to take him out.
Yeah. Well, when we say take him out, we mean
on a lovely date
legal sense
to court.
You mean challenge him in a legal sense? That's what you mean.
In a court of law.
We wouldn't want that to be
take him out to that date. Yes.
Speaking about being misconstrued, because it's very important that we use our words correctly, right? We're moving into our, I think our third and final topic of the day. I sort of is. It's quite a long one actually, because we're talking about, now remember, we can't only say his name twice, because if we say it for a third time, he'll turn up in the mirror behind you. So we'll just say Winston Peters once. I've said it right. So only one more time, or else he will turn up in someone's mirror. So we can only say one more time. So you can't say the W and the P together. Maybe you can say Winnie or WP or Mr. Peters, but you can't say his full name any more than one more time. Okay, so we'll just save it for a sec. So I nearly said it straight away. Yesterday at a public meeting in Invercargill, someone asked what the stance of New Zealand First was on a man being able to identify as a woman and walking into women's toilets.
Just the big issues.
This is what the Windmeister had to say.
No one with a penis should be allowed into a woman's toilet.
Cool. How do you check that?
And no such person should be enabled to be in a sporting team which massively advantages them and disadvantages women.
Right, there you go. Clap, 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 bloody da 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 da. To which I tweeted out, I guess when you're stating no one, like, so we got to take him at his word, using words. Words are important. He's a former lawyer, so he means it. He means what he says, no one. So I guess now we're saying no one means Winston's going to legislate against toddlers with a penis going into a mall bathroom with their mums, because no one with a penis is allowed in. That is, and also, of course, it's just word salad, not thought out by Mr. Peters to dog whistle to the lowest common denominator for votes. That could be the other possibility. I mean, I'm just saying, it could be, might be, might not be. Had a few responses to that as well. Some people saying that means mums are now going to have to go into the men's room with their baby boys. Yeah, so women will have to go into the men's loos with their boy babies. So yeah, so that's Winston Peters, which has raised the question, Chewy. I'll give you a chance to respond to that first. How terrible would it be for New Zealand if New Zealand First got back in? And I've got a bunch of information to talk about with that. Also, did you know it looks that New Zealand, that Newstalk ZB has now started a campaign actively against New Zealand First and Winston Peters. We'll get to that as well. But to start off with,
this just dreadful people deathmatch Monday?
Must be,
because I'm down for that.
All right, what do you reckon?
Let's
what do you think about
who are we going to pair Hoskins up against?
I don't know. We'll get to that. So Winston playing that kind of card. What's happening with New Zealand First at the moment? And we've been saying all the way through, get your racist Uncle Bob to vote for Democracy New Zealand or Leighton Baker or whatever. It'd be great to get like 4.5% of the vote to be farmed off between 5 or 6 of these little parties. What appears to be happening is Winston, they seem to be coalescing around Winston, and that seems to be his bump in the polls, is that there's a bunch of conspiracy theorists, people who think that our act is too soft, is now forming around Winston. It's completely not who Winston is. I mean, Winston is the reason that Jacinda Ardern was Prime Minister, remember? It's because of Winston. He did that.
Yeah.
So this is not his world, but he wants power more than he wants authenticity. Chewy.
Yeah. That's always been Winston's thing. There's a bunch of these people, these cookers, that have not forgiven Winston and are demanding that he apologise for putting Jacinda in power. So there are people that will just never let him back in. But look, if there's one thing that Winnie P is good at, it's being a reactionary douchebag, just latching on to some issue, whether it's race baiting or in this case, trans panic. And let's be clear, that question is nonsense, because unless they're going to station penis inspectors at every public bathroom, then it's a nonsense question.
Sounds fun.
There are trans people that have been using women's and men's bathrooms for decades, and it's not been a problem.
Do you also notice? Do you also notice? At no point did he say no one with a vagina will use a man's bathroom.
No,
because it's not about that. It's like when we talk about Luxon wants equality with race, but wants all the other protected classes to have their own special rights. But race, it needs it. And the thing about the trans attacking the trans community, it's always about trans women. Always about. You never hear it about trans men.
And again, just to underline this, because this will come up again. Men who want to assault women don't have to go to the effort of pretending to transition or transitioning. They can just go and assault women. They can kick in a bathroom door. They can wait till a woman's by themselves. That happens way more, magnitudes more every day than a trans woman assaulting a woman. It's just a nonsense thing.
It's a bit like the conservative Christians all talking about drag queens being like groomers and pedophiles, whereas the biggest proportion of those are conservative white men, especially if you look at the place like churches. But they try and point to others as a way to bring them down and find a bullshit argument, as opposed to actually going, okay, let's talk about groomers. Who are they? Where are they? Like, I used to watch that program. You can still find it on YouTube. You know, the guy, Dateline, How to Catch a Pedo or whatever it was called. And they'd walk into the thing and go and take a seat. Let's talk to me. Take a seat. That guy. Never once did I see a fucking drag queen walk into that house. Never once of all the episodes. I saw lots of cis
youth pastors,
men, soldiers, youth pastors, lots of them. Never saw a drag queen. So come on. Anyway, the next thing about this, right? So Winston is playing the not even dog whistle. He's just being straight out. Is why would it be bad for New Zealand if he got in? Well, Stuff did a very, very, very good expose over the weekend. And I've got quite a bit to read to you. I don't know how my coughing is going to go here, but I've got quite a bit of reading to do to you. So chemtrails, 9/11 and vaccine nanobots, the digital trail of New Zealand First could be MPs. Recent polls show New Zealand First, yada, yada, yada. Get back into politics. For several years, a user currently named Polly has been pumping the social media app Telegram with conspiracy content. Much of it involves sinister global plots supposedly seeping from groups like the World Economic Forum WEF to oppress the control of the population. Polly once shared a post suggesting those who look at, quote, the death shots, end quote, are, quote, technically no longer human, end quote. Another post suggested visiting a cemetery to verify whether dead vaxxers emit Bluetooth signals.
I mean, it's funny, but then holy shit, that person could be in Parliament.
Oh, no spoilers. She shared a video alleging the COVID-19 vaccines contain nanotechnology, connecting the vaccinated to a centralized 5G smart grid, turning them into biological robots branded with a scannable product code. Another laid out a sprawling theory involving the Knights Templar, Nazis, and the Swiss government, which claimed nearly all terrorist attacks since 9/11 were false flags undertaken by the New World Order. People should watch, Polly wrote. Speaking of 9/11, Polly isn't sure about that one. I genuinely thought 9/11 was real, she wrote in 2021. If I can wake up, others will too. To Polly, politicians from across the spectrum deserve suspicion. She had been an ACT supporter. This is it. But this was exactly what I was just saying, until they became too woke. And then, where did she go? Until she received an email with the party's COVID response plan in 2021. Welcome to Communist China, she wrote in a reply. You have lost my vote. Dame Jacinda Ardern is, quote, the most evil thing, end quote. When Ardern visited Waitangi in 2022, Polly cryptically posted, Cindy is at Waitangi. You know what to do. Even Donald Trump is deserving of scorn. Zionist Trump Tower, the 7 pillars, inverted triangles with trees planted 6 by 6 by 6. No one is coming to save us, Polly posted alongside an image of the Trump Tower. An anonymous Telegram user isn't typically worth covering in a news article, but Polly was recently announced as a candidate for New Zealand First. Kirsten Murfitt is a property and commercial lawyer in Tauranga. She has been a candidate for Democracy New Zealand before leaving as part of a candidate exodus. Now, there's more, but I'm going to give a little cough. So you can pick up on that for right this very second, shall we?
That is amazing. Like, this should be the number one thing that people are asking Winston about. Why is this person a candidate? But yeah, it's the audience that he's been courting. Like when he walked through the Freedom Village outside Parliament,
Yep,
that was him announcing, "I want to be your candidate."
Well, he was asked about it.
All the other MPs they weren't going to, but he did.
He was asked about it, and his response was basically, "We do not finalize our list until the 14th of September." So I suspect you might see Polly at number 99 or something, because he won't want to turn her away, because Peter's dilemma is he needs their vote. Right, I won't read this one because this is about Kirsten again. Kirsten. Yep, we'll leave all that stuff because we'll go on to some other. Oh, here we go. This is response from Mr. Peters. In response to a request for comment on this article, Peters said the announced candidates were provisional. New Zealand First candidates are selected after a process of investigation as to their qualifications and suitability and will not be finalised or released until nomination day on 14th of September. Staff has identified several other announced New Zealand First candidates who have shared false or extreme views about the pandemic and other topics. They include Auckland consultant Janina Mace, who formed her own political party last year called NZ Strong, but folded it last month to join New Zealand First. She has since been confirmed as the party's whangaparaoa candidate. On social media last year, Mace shared a post that asked, "Why are we still being led to the slaughter, like so many to the gas chambers?" in a seemingly referenced COVID-19 vaccines. It is unclear if she wrote the post or simply shared it. The party's announced Coromandel candidate Caleb Ansell is a councillor in the Matamata Piako district and stood for the New Conservatives in the last election. Staff has connected Ansell to a since-suspended Twitter account that once tweeted WWG1WGA, standing for Where We Go One, We Go All, the catchphrase of the QAnon movement. It was a reply to another tweet that was deleted, meaning the context is unclear. Staff requested clarification from Ansell, but did not receive a response. Kevin Stone, we're still going. Kevin Stone, the party's Hamilton West candidate, has stood for the party in previous elections. He shared a post in May 2020 alleging that the pandemic was a plandemic orchestrated by multiple governments at the behest of the global financial cartel, which wanted a great reduction in the population of the developed world and the virtual enslavement of the remainder. Now, you might say, well, there are people who are involved with it. This is New Zealand's First page. This is not the list, but you can see some of these names, like Kevin Stone. There you go. Quite near the top, you know. This is not the list in order, but you'd have to say probably Winston 1, Shane Jones 2.
Yeah.
So what this will end up being, I don't know, but it does just speak to the idea of the quality of people that are now supporting New Zealand First. So the write-up for this conversation was, I think it'll be terrible if New Zealand First got there, if for no other reason, the people that Winston will bring with him into Parliament. Chewy.
Yeah, I mean, New Zealand First has always been, I guess, conspiracy adjacent. It's that and racism, or anti-Asian racism specifically, that has been their bread and butter.
Xenophobia, you'd probably say?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we should always be concerned when they get a bump in the polls. I hope you're right that the fractured nature of all these insane people will mean that they can't coalesce around a single personality.
Well, we're going to move on to that, and it's going to do a little bit to do with Jack Johnson, who I love your music. It's a joke, Jack Johnson, Jack, the guitarist, singer-songwriter.
Yes.
Do you think it could split the right vote? Well, we'll get into that in just a second. Before we do that, though, thank you for the Super Chat planner, $6.66. It came in right after the person was talking about the 6x6x6. Remember when Winston called someone out for being a conspiracy theorist? Those were better times, says Planner Walk. I agree, Planner Walk. Those were better times. Yeah, it's an interesting time. I do want to go into another part of this conversation to do with Winston still, but it seems to me, and going back to that comment that I just put up about will they split the right? It seems to me that Newstalk ZB, could be wrong, but it looks to me that Newstalk ZB has made a decision that they are going to do everything they can to stop Winston getting elected. Now, it might sound like a bit of an over-exaggeration, but in the space of 24 hours, we've already had 2 articles released by 2 of their hosts, Heather Duplessis-Allen, and also that was yesterday, and today, Kate Hawkesby, who sounds so much like Mike in her cadence. You wait, I'm going to play some of it. She sounds like Mike.
Oh, no.
Like they speak in the very same sort of way. Like, honestly, you know what I might do? I'll put some of this in my audio editor and I'll just drop the tone a little bit. I reckon she'll sound like Mike. Maybe they are. Maybe he's taking 2 salaries. Right. So this is, and I'll roll, for people watching, I'll scroll down because I've actually highlighted the words as well that she's talking about. So this is Kate Hawkesby talking about Winston Peters. The article is called, I Worry About the Kiwis with Short Memories. Have a listen.
Voting for Winston are doing it because they say he'll get rid of the Māori signs or he'll get rid of all the gender nonsense. I mean, those 2 statements alone give you some insight into the New Zealand First voters' mindset. But what these people fail to understand is how MMP works. They're voting for Winston like he's going to be Prime Minister, like he's going to have enough sway to move the needle and change things in this country, like the bigger parties are just going to do everything he says, like he's going to be in government. Think again. Firstly, he's not New Zealand First, he's Winston First. His goals for this country are less about caring about what's right for it and more about what's beneficial to him. He appointed a losing party to government in 2017, ignoring everyone who voted for him, and just because he wanted to take the biggest bribe.
It's true. His supporters didn't want him to go with Labour, and he went with Labour, and now he's back again.
Settle some scores. He abandoned his base for power, and once there, he allowed that government to implement all the things he now rails against. As Richard Prebble wrote the other day in his Herald column, New Zealand First was no handbrake. Peters was part of a government that issued compulsory vaccination mandates and developed co-governance. Only he would have the nerve to campaign against policies he made possible. If history is a guide, then the more Peters rules out supporting Labour, the more likely it is that he will support that party. All voting for New Zealand First will do is split the right vote further and make for a more chaotic outcome, or worse, push a left-leaning coalition back into power. For all the people who bemoan the state.
So there you go. So people who are saying, could it split the vote on the right? I guess that's what Kate Hawkesby is suggesting. And it seems to me, at least, that there is now an active campaign on Newstalk ZB to inform their voters not to vote for Winston. Here's another one. This was 24 hours before that. Heather Duplessis-Allen, election 2023, Act New Zealand First coupling a headache for National. Chris Luxon should have ruled out working with Winston Peters. He'll regret not doing it. Everyone in the end does. But everyone in the end does rule out working with him. But Luxon probably missed his window. It's probably too late now that Peters' party, New Zealand First, is at 5% or above in 3 polls in a row. At this rate, he'll get higher on election night. Polls becoming self-fulfilling prophecy for minor parties because voters feel reassured that their votes won't be wasted, so they start piling in. Short of a disaster, Peters is almost certainly to be in the next parliament. The trouble for Luxon is that Peters in the next parliament looks a lot like Peters in the next government. On the Taxpayers Union Courier poll out this week, ACT and National only just scraped together with a required 61 seats between them to form the government. If either of them drops by even 1%, they need Peters. That's bad news. Now, could it be coincidental? 2 Newstalk ZB hosts coming out saying, warning, Newstalk ZB people, we don't want Winston. Or is there something calculated going on? I can't answer that, but it feels, Chewy, quite calculated.
Yeah, no, you're right. I hate it when the worst person we know makes some good points. Like it's an absolute shit salad because there's just some nonsense. Like it's very clear that Kate Hawkesby doesn't know how MMP works when she described Labour as a losing party in 2017.
Losing government.
Because that's that was the whole thing. The reason that they got in was because of Winston. That's how MMP works. You make negotiations to get yourself in Parliament if you don't have the raw numbers, which is most of the time. You know, we will have a negotiation period for the upcoming government. You know, nobody's really going to say, yep, we've come to an agreement already before election day with this guy, because it's no good for any of them. So there will always be a negotiation. Something about Hoskins and Hawkesby, they don't understand MMP. It's been around for 20 years. They still don't know how it works.
Kate Hawkesby, and I don't know Kate. I didn't work there. We didn't work together. Or maybe she was doing news reading when I was there. But I have lots of people still within the building who I talk to regularly. And this might sound horrible, and I don't mean it to sound horrible. It's not a judgment. It's just an observation. I'm told she's not particularly smart by numerous people. And so I'd be interested to know. I mean, she's eloquent. Sounds good, what she's saying, but I wonder how much of that is actually the cadence is coming from Mike Hoskins because the ideas are coming from Mike Hoskins.
That's the thing about media training, though. You can sound convincing. You like Liz Gunn is media trained. She sounds very convincing. She's talking absolute horse shit, but by God, she's emphatic about it. And if you snort enough powdered bleach, it's believable. It's believable. But yeah, look, I think if you look to history, if you give Winston an opening, he has been at this game for so long. We know that Hawkesby's right in this case. It is Winston first.
Yeah, always has been.
That classic meme of him holding up the piece of paper that says, "No, I won't accept the baubles of office." Every time he's had the chance to get the baubles, he fucking grabs the baubles. And people need to see him for what he is. And look, I would love it if every party just ruled out. I love the fact that ACT have ruled out working with Winston and working out with Te Pāti Māori. Like ACT are just shutting the door on everyone left, right, and centre.
Well, so is National, to be fair, for Te Pāti Māori. There is the thing of supplying confidence, though. So National, ACT, government, New Zealand First supplying confidence, or National. Well, the thing about Winston is he's so vindictive that he might go National if National chooses to go with ACT and he needs them for supplying confidence. He might go nah. And then what? Then we've got a hung parliament. And that means if we go forward with a minority government, basically, I guess any party. That would be interesting, actually, because that means, let's just say on election night, National and ACT have 59 seats. And let's say Winston's there. He's got 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever it is. And that would mean a minority government. And they have to get at least one other party on board to put things through every time. That would be interesting.
Yes, it would be. It would be. People would have to get out of their ideological lanes and actually start doing some horse trading. Or it could be absolute chaos and nothing happens. So, it depends on how pragmatic people are.
I can see you've got a photo to share. I'm going to share mine first. Now, how I said
that's your prerogative.
Well, I'm already go. I'm good to go. How we cancelled Saturday night when that all got kind of cancelled. So I went out on a bit of a date and kind of hung out in town for a little bit. And check this out for people who are outside of Dunedin. This is a sculpture in central Dunedin. Cool. It's actually in the Octagon right now. I don't know who these people are, but I took them in the photo for perspective. So you can see this person's probably under 6 foot. So that's probably maybe between about 15 foot high, and then the spike. So it's pretty damn cool. It's called Second Sun, and inside it, so it's sort of a canvasy type material. Inside it has light therapy bulbs, which are designed to lift one's mood and ease other symptoms of seasonal affective disorder. And it was really cute to see all the people walking up to it and kind of going and just taking in. I guess it's UV or whatever they emit, but that's a sculpture
5G,
in the Octagon at the moment. It's 5G. Maybe it was reading people's nanoparticles from the vaccine. But I thought that was pretty cool. Actually, we actually drove through the Octagon. We were kind of going for a bit of a drive after we had Burger and Beast for dinner. Then we drove through the Octagon, and I saw that, and I was like, "Oh, we got to stop. That is dope. Look at that thing." So we stopped and had a look.
I love stuff like that. Like I love Dunedin's Midwinter Carnival. I love when I was in Wellington. They had a light festival on the waterfront. Like that's something that I love about winter. Is, you know, there's a lot to not love about winter, but the fact that it gets dark early and you can do light installations, there's a big tick.
Yeah. Cool, man.
Can I share my picture
yeah,
now?
share it for sure. It's cool.
Am I allowed? Like
Yeah,
the standard has been set here.
Yeah.
Gary, friend of the show, with his look at that. That's with Queen Chloe, and that's a BHN t-shirt.
If
That's
the
the
left
standard.
votes, the left wins. I actually think that still holds true.
Mm-hmm.
I know that most people are kind of going, "Oh, it's Nationals to lose now." I don't agree with that. In fact, maybe later on in the week we'll get into the internal polling that was released. Well, not released, kind of seen by Tova O'Brien and been written about from Labor. It's not over yet. As I said, it's always been 59-41 and 51-49, and now it might be 55-45 or 53-47 if you're looking percentages wise. But you know, it's not over. And what I actually did in the weekend, I'll show you. I don't know if you saw this. I haven't finished it yet. On Friday, I didn't get any work. Well, I got work done, but I got certain work done. On Friday, I actually spent about 3 hours, and maybe I'll do some more of this tomorrow and try and get to you guys. Here we go. Let me bring this up. I spent 3 hours on Friday. You've stolen my screen. That's
doing nothing. Up there.
Going over the last 3 elections and going over TVNZ, TV3, and Roy Morgan polls. So these are the last 5 polls of each of those. So there's 15 polls over each of the years, and you can see I got to here. You see where I gave up? Here it was too much. I was blind by that point. But I might go and finish it tomorrow, because what I'm looking for is I'm looking for any trends. Like, is Roy Morgan out by 3%? Is TVNZ overestimate by 1%? And I thought it's not going to give us an answer, but I just thought this might give us a bit of insight. Look at that messy desk. Might give us a bit of an insight into how accurate the polls are, or certainly how accurate they've been over the last. I might even do a couple more over the last 3, 4, or 5 elections, because when we look at the polls and we say those are the numbers, like Bomber was on with us last week. And Bomber, the numbers don't actually show this. He's not right, but he said, you know, Labor always underpolls by 5%, and National always overpolls by 5%. It's not the case. I can already see it's not the case. But what is the case? So I'm interested to have a look and see what it says, because obviously the younger the person, the less likely it is they are to be in a poll, but the more likely they are to vote for the Greens, say. So what does the polling say versus what do the Greens get? So yeah, I might try and get some of that finished tomorrow, and if I can, we might share it tomorrow night. I will do it at some stage though, once I've uncrossed my eyes to have a bit of a look.
Hey, just a thought that popped to mind. When's the first debate?
I have no idea, but if we're 62 days away, if we're less than 9 weeks away, you'd have to say it's 4 or 5 weeks out, like from the election. There was also, speaking of news information, this is what I'll bring up tomorrow, is there was, I think, a statistician on it, someone who's an expert in data, and they're basically saying in the last, kind of now in the next 4 to 5 weeks, that's when everyone decides who they're going to vote for. Is an infinitesimally small number of people make that decision in the last week. So they'll know this, and they'll want to do the debates in the time that people are most open to deciding, and that will be in the next month to 6 weeks. So I can only say in the next month to 6 weeks would be my guess.
And especially nowadays that we do the sensible thing and spread the voting out over a week.
Yep.
You know, with the early voting and that sort of thing, which I love.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. We're done, guys. That's us for tonight. I've already got stuff lined up for tomorrow night, stuff that we've already talked about tonight. So we'll get some of that tomorrow night. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm aiming to do a new merch drop later this week for a couple of weeks. We'll have BHN specific merch, and it will have Left Vote, Left Wins t-shirt, but probably one in red and one in green. Give you a chance to get that in and get it there before the election's down. Now that we've got the system down as well, we'll be able to get them out quite quickly once it's finished. The Orange Man is coming. Oh yeah. That used to be what's his name? Used to be an actor off Shortland Street who worked in the cafe, and he was on Lord of the Rings as well, but he doesn't do it anymore. Anyway, all right, team. I think we're done. We're done, Chewy. We're done. Love you to bits. Thanks for being with us. 1,600. Now that actually says 1,600,000. So that's very expensive.
He took the long way.
1,600,000. Because that says 1,600 and K means 1,000. So that's 1,600,000. Is that $160,000?
Let's not open Gary up to criticism about the size of his navigation hole from Nicola Willis.
We'd love to see some more photos of people wearing their merch and more merch later.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, team. We'll catch you tomorrow night from 9 o'clock. Thanks for being with us. All the best. Stay safe. Hooroo. Be well.